Is it possible to work a corporate job and not be miserable? Well, this is a question that was posed on Reddit, and it's an interesting question, and actually, it's pretty much intended and should be considered by all of you who are working out for a large corporation. Because we all know that when we work for a large corporation, we're excited to have the job, but as it turns out, you end up miserable, and and everybody's just plain unhappy. Everybody's stressed out because usually you have one person doing the job of multiple people, and it seems to be very, very common, and it's happening more and more frequently as time passes. And so let's read this post. Is it possible to work in a corporate and not be miserable? Does anyone here work in corporate and not hate it? Is anyone in a situation where they're not doing the job of five people, where it isn't super high stress and constant fires? What kind of job, if so? I've been with the same company my entire career, and it's just gotten progressively worse. But I'm trying to figure out if it's my company or just corporate in general. I'm very concerned about how I'm going to manage to work for another 30 years at this rate. I don't know which field is safe anymore. This post was posted on Reddit from Best Winter 3976. And I just have to say to Best Winter, that's pretty standard across the board. For the most part, every corporation at this point is trying to condense every job that they can. I know the corporate world that I came from, they did away with software. They kept the software developers, but they did away with all the support people, the business analysts, any managers. In all honesty, managers, business analysts, and all they wanted were software developers. Now, they didn't care whether the software developers were able to do their work or not, or the fact that a software developer had to, do the role of business analyst. They didn't care. They just wanted everybody with the same title. And in all honesty, it was so stressful where I worked that people went to the hospital because they were having heart issues. I mean, come on. But, when we're thinking about the corporate environment, should we really be surprised? I mean, when we think about it, these massive corporations have become so large that job seekers think that the only jobs that are out there are with these large corporations. So these companies have gotten so large that they've become self-important, essentially. The people running them think that they are the only game in town. Now, I guess, if I'm being fair, I guess in some cases they kind of are. I mean, in reality, that's kind of a lot what's happening right now. It's a lot what America and what the globe is shifting to where we only have a select number of huge corporations. And we have people complaining about it right here, about the high stress, about the corporate work environment. Just imagine if we lived on a planet where the only jobs available were this, where you had to work for a large corporation in order to work at all. Just imagine that. So there are a couple things that we need to address from this post, and they're all very important. So let's break it down a little bit. So they say, I've been with the same company my entire life, and it's gotten progressively worse. So the first part about that is there are still people who are trying to work the same job for their entire life. I know for some of us that's a little weird, and where I'm at as a career coach, I don't teach that. I used to think that was the most important thing. But as I've worked in a corporation and I've worked with a lot of other people who have worked in corporations, I've discovered how bad of an idea that is. Now, from an individual standpoint, if you stay in one position too long, your rate of pay does not keep up with inflation because the amount of inflation is higher than the amount that they compensate you on an annual basis. The other issue is from the employer standpoint, they don't want you sticking around. They don't. Their expectation is that you are going to be gone in a couple of years. So they're going to work the heck out of you while you're trying to earn a living. Their expectation is that you're going to be gone, right? You're not going to stick around. The revolving door of the corporate environment. Why? Because they don't want to have to give you severance pay if they fire you. They don't want to have to worry about retirement. They don't want to have to worry about any benefits beyond just compensating you for your time. And see, that's the thing. When people get older, they're more likely to have things like heart attacks or other health issues. An employer have to pay for that in one way or another through health care or whatever it is. Okay, so when you look at it from the standpoint of the corporate environment, it doesn't make any sense to have people for a long period of time. Now, in a small company, makes a lot of sense because then you have people with a lot of value, a lot of knowledge. Efficiency is extremely high. But in the corporate environment, they don't care about efficiency. They don't. They just don't. All they care about is that they have somebody available to do the work at the lowest cost possible. Okay, let's see what else we have. I'm trying to figure out if it's my company or just corporate in general. It is not just your company. Pretty much any large company is in the same boat. I've yet to run to somebody that says, oh my gosh, my massively large corporation is the most amazing to work at. Now, I did work at a place where people did say that, but then they got a new CEO and things changed and now people hate it. They continue by saying, I'm very concerned about how I'm going to manage to work for another 30 years at this rate. I don't know which field is safe anymore. The answer is none. None. And again, our corporate world, between corporations and the college experience, in our culture, we have removed the idea that once you get enough experience, you create your own business. We've eliminated that. That essentially is no longer possible unless you're somebody who's really into that sort of thing right now. But we've considered that almost, I don't know, taboo. It's almost outside of you're coloring outside the lines when you start your own corporation. But we used to work jobs. People used to have work where you would get enough experience so you could just open up your own company. But I mean, now if you're like, okay, well, my job in corporate was to take this piece of paper and hand it to the next guy and get their approval. Well, you're probably not going to create a business out of that. There might be a way, I'm sure, but you're not likely to do that. And not everybody can do that. And that leads me to another issue that's in the corporate environment, and that is separation of duties. Now, we've all heard, at least most likely, especially in IT, separation of duties and accounting separation of duties. And it sounds so good because you're like, oh, we don't have to trust people to do the right thing. If we trust, they're going to hurt us. So what we need to do is separate responsibilities so that nobody has too much knowledge or information or control over one area. And in some ways, in accounting and in some other factors in some other industries, yeah, I could definitely see that. But the corporation, what they've done is they've broken down people's jobs so finely that you don't learn enough to really do anything beyond that job. And that's intentional. That's intentional. They don't want you to take your experience and go start a new company. They don't want you to do that. Why do you think very few people in a large company work in sales? Very few people in large companies maybe work on the insurance side or marketing or sales. I already said sales, but in marketing, human resources. Why? Because they could only have a select few people who are part of the club, as the people in the prior generation used to call, the good old, well, it's a little bit different, but I'll call it this. And this is what I call the corporate good old boy club. And, it's kind of one of those things where if you're part of the team, if you have the same ideology, if you are hook, line, and sinker completely into the bag, if you drink the Kool-Aid deep enough, then you could be part of the corporate machine. And so that's the other part. In order to be one of these people, you have to look right. You have to speak right. And you have to have the right ideology. You have to understand the corporate environment, the people who work at corporate. So they're people who are going to be in marketing, in sales, in human resources. They're going to be C-suite officers and managers and the CEO, president, whatever it is that they have, that's corporate. Those are the people in corporate. If you are not in the corporate office, you're a peon. You're doing the work that those people don't want to have to do. And you actually have a choice. You could either decide to join their ranks, drink the Kool-Aid and try to join their ranks, or you could say, I'm not going to do that. I say, heck no. No. And until we get to a point to where these corporations don't have enough people to do their work, things won't change. Corporations will continue to get larger. They'll grow more and more. And eventually that's all we'll have. We'll have no small companies. We'll have no new opportunities. All we'll have will be these what are called corporate positions. And so finally, to answer the question, is there anyone in any situation where they're not doing the job of 5 people, where it isn't super high stress and constant fires? What kind of job, and if so? Well, if you want one of those jobs, you'll have to work in the corporate office. That's it for today. I'm SP Graham. This is JobFerno. If you have any questions, send me an email at questions@jobferno.com. And as always, choose skills over money.